Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slade, and today we're going to talk about AEW Dynamite, my AEW Dynamite report. For first, hit the like button for me and subscribe unless you're already subscribed. So let's talk about AEW Dynamite, November the 4th, 2020, the go home show for Full Gear. So we start the show with a really good Chris Jericho promo. Jericho is one of the best promos of all time, even though he's rubbing people the wrong way now. He's kind of definitely over the hill and he's a bit, much, but he's really good, and Jericho nailed it here. So Jericho's talking about Jake Hager and the Bellator win. Jake Hager barely won a Bellator fight against some, you know, guy who probably sweeps the floors at a brewery somewhere. In any event, Jake Hager barely beat this guy, but at least he won. It was pretty brutal, but he won. And so Jericho kind of is talking about how Hager is a big guy, badass, undefeated in Bellator. Then MJF comes in, and MJF is like, oh no, I can't believe that. I think there was some tension between us before. Talking about the previous week during the debates, and he wanted to make sure everything was okay. And then Jericho just kind of just says like, I'm glad you interrupted me because you look at Hager, he got two black eyes and busted up. He's still here. He's a tough guy. So Santana was standing there. He's like, Santana, tough guy. I'm a tough guy. We're all tough guys, and you come across a little soft. He just basically called MJF soft. And he's pampered. I mean, that's MJF's character though, right? His character is that he's pampered. He's a rich boy. You know, so tough guy is not really his thing. It's not really Jericho's thing either, but he can, he's been in the business a long time. He's done things, so he can say I'm tough. But MJF is young, hasn't really gone through a lot of stuff, and that's actually not in his character to avoid that. Like when he had to wrestle Moxley, he was in the ring. Moxley was outside the ring trying to do outside the ring stuff. So it fits. It obviously fits. It's perfect. So, MJF is pissed, because the truth hurts. So he storms off. Then he had this match. MJF and Wardlow defeat Sammy Guevara and Ortiz. I was about to say Santana and Ortiz, but Ortiz. Does Ortiz have a first name? Does Santana have a first name? In any event, Sammy Guevara just basically did all the flips. And that's pretty much what kind of match we had, is everybody just played their part. It was a stupid spot in this match, though. It was a spot where Ortiz and Guevara were trying to suplex MJF from the top rope. And so Wardlow gets underneath Ortiz and Guevara and pulls them down in a powerbomb position. And he powerbombed them, but at the same time, they suplexed MJF. And then he was standing there posing like, raw. And I was like, you basically hurt your own partner. You pulled them, like, if you're trying to save your partner, pull the guys off of him so that he can do something else instead of pulling the whole thing down, because you pulled MJF down along with him. Stupid. That's a spot that people do in Fatal 4-Ways. They don't think. These spot monkeys. Put some thought into it. The match was incredibly choreographed, obviously. I mean, you had so many odd spots like Ortiz looking over his shoulder. You've got Wardlow pinning people in very specific places so that a guy can jump on them. It was absolutely weird. And then you had outside the ring, you had Matt Hardy. He was dressed as Serpentico. He threw a chair at Sammy Guevara's head, which took Sammy Guevara out of the match. And while he was distracted, Ortiz got put in an armbar. He tapped out. So MJF won the match. He defeated Ortiz. And then afterwards, he's yelling at Jericho like, I'm tough. I'm tough. And then he darts across the ramp, across the apron, and tackles Jericho as Jericho's at commentary. Throws like 3 or 4 punches, and then it had to be separated. And then Jericho's smiling. Like, oh yeah, that's what I kind of wanted. I wanted to bring out the intensity of MJF. That's really what he's trying to convey with the smile. Problem with that is they were just singing and dancing 2 weeks ago. They were just singing and dancing 2 weeks ago. I thought that the song and dance meant that they were now friends, which would make sense. But now I see that that was what a moment in time. Like it's like that weird ass movie Knocked Up, where this chick goes out, she has sex with some dude she didn't know on the first night, and then she turns out that she hates him later, or she gets pregnant, and then she decides, oh, I'm gonna try to make it work. Like like that's kind of what we're doing here. Like MJF and Jericho had this dance sequence. MJF thought it meant something. To Jericho, it didn't mean anything. But now that they're stuck together, and it's like now they're feuding, and they've only been feuding for 2 weeks because they were singing and dancing with each other 2 weeks ago. So I don't get it. They were each other's shadow 2 weeks ago. This is dumb. Okay, this is dumb. Now, if you would have for things to deteriorate so fast, makes no sense. It makes no sense. That's probably why you shouldn't have did it. And I know I'm one of the goofs that actually thought the dinner debonair was funny, but now I'm looking at the fallout, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense. That should have been the friendship that you guys become friends after that. But now it's like they've never made contact as far as throwing punches at each other until after they've already sung and danced. That doesn't make any fucking sense. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. So Tony Schiavone talks to Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega, I don't know why he talks. It just doesn't make any sense. But he basically, what was he talking about? He said he was betting on Wardlow in the tournament. We should just basically talk about the Kenny Omega and Adam Page stuff right now. Kenny Omega is being positioned as being uber confident. He didn't really have any faith in Adam Page anyway, but he kept saying my former tag team partner, my ex tag team partner. And I was kind of like, look, we get it. You said it once already. I mean, we got that part. But basically, he's won every tournament he's ever entered. This isn't going to be any different. Juxtapose this to later in the show, you got Adam Page, who was sitting there with JR, and he's drinking bourbon. And him and JR are talking, and JR is supposed to mention how he keeps drinking this bourbon. And, and he asked him if he was nervous, and then he started stuttering like, yeah. Wouldn't anybody be nervous? I'm like, what the fuck? You are a pro wrestler. Why are you nervous? You wrestled Chris Jericho for the title already. Why are you nervous? What the fuck is going on? Why do they keep making Adam Page look like this? He looks like a fucking goof. He looks like a goof, and he's sulking like an ex-boyfriend. This fucking sucks. This fucking sucks. You're not seeing two men fighting at this point. That's what you want to see. You want to see you want to see from this match, and it's probably not possible because you don't have the right ingredients, but you want to see something similar to the Moxley and Kingston stuff. I can't wait to get to that. I cannot wait to get to that. But why can't you have that here? I know that you don't have the same ingredients. I get that. But you can get close to it. Adam Page has been in big matches before as a solo act. It's not his first run as a solo wrestler. Why is he so, it's, what? Why? Why are you doing that? Why? Why are you doing that? It doesn't make sense. Stop doing this. It's too late now. The damage is done. Okay. And then we have to talk about Adam Page again later. But that promo where he's sitting there drinking, stuttering and shit, talking about, oh, it's been difficult. Like, man, that shit is horrible. It's not adding layers to the character. He's a sad drunk. It'd have been one thing if he was like one of them wild and crazy drunks. Like, oh, hell yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait to get in there. And, he's like super overconfident because he's like an angry drunk where he's, which is where I thought they were going with it. Remember a couple of weeks ago, it was probably over a month now, where he threw that glass and broke it against the Miro when the Young Bucks kicked him out of the Elite. We're going to talk about that again later. But I thought that it was going to turn him into an angry drunk, that he was going to be drinking and getting frustrated, drinking and being angry. But no, he's depressed. He's heartbroken. This is the saddest, most pathetic shit in the world. Why do I want to see that guy wrestle a match? Especially the match of his life. Are they trying to give him a way out that when he loses, it's going to be because he was drunk? or he was drinking, he had a drinking problem, and it affected his confidence. No, look, you're overdoing it. You're overthinking it. Just get rid of that shit. Just it's too late now because it's the go home show. But come on. And then they even insinuated that he might wrestle in the match drunk. What? Jericho insinuated, like, oh, if he wrestles in that match in any way intoxicated, instead of saying, look, he needs to clean up because he can't wrestle in that match drunk because we're not going to let him. You know, like our medical protocols will not allow him to wrestle drunk. They kind of imply that he might wrestle drunk. I spent too much time on this shit already. Let's go into Miro versus Trent. This match was actually pretty good. Miro still looks good. He's big. He's jacked. His matches are about the same as when he was Rusev. Trent Beretta, he was okay in WWE. I didn't really follow his independent career, but he was good here. He has good matches. There were too many bodies outside the ring because there was Dark Order guys out there and Chuck Taylor attacking Kip Sabian out there and Penelope Ford and Orange Cassidy doing stuff out there. It was all dumb. Like what was going on in the ring as far as the two guys that were working, that was fine. Trent probably got too much offense in and the match was probably too long because they have yet to establish Miro as a bona fide killer, which is what you want. They have not established that yet. He's been established as a guy who can have good matches if you give him time. But that's 90% of the roster. He is not separate from anybody else. He's no different than Brian Cage and Lance Archer and anybody else. The only difference is Brian Cage and Lance Archer probably would have beat this same dude in half the time. Right? And I get that maybe you want to give him more time because you're not really exposing a lot of Miro. And this was his first singles match in I think he said 7 months or 9 months or something like that. But you still, all the gaga and all the goofs running around outside the ring, you could throw that shit away. It makes sense to have maybe Kip is cheating and then Chucky Taylor chases him off. Okay, I can buy that. But everybody else running around out there, stop that shit. That shit's stupid. So, after he wins, Miro puts Trent back into the camel clutch, and Chuck Taylor comes out, knocks him down. I forgot to mention this. But I'm gonna mention it all together. So I'm gonna go ahead and package all of it together. The pre-match promo from Miro was really bad. It was really bad. He said something about you're ignorant and you're stupid because your mother didn't teach you any manners. And then this made Trent really angry because he mentioned his mom, and that's how the match started. After the match, after Chuck Taylor got beat up because he put his hands on Miro, Miro gets the mic again and is breathing like super heavy, like, and it's like, like I was saying, your mother didn't treat you any manners. And then I don't know why he sounded like Drew McIntyre. Then all of a sudden, Orange Cassidy jumps off the top rope onto Miro and Kip Sabian, taking them both out. And I was like, well, there you go. That's how they feel about you. That's how they feel about you. So that was really weird. I already talked about the Hangman Page stuff. So they did the package for the Young Bucks and not Private Party, but Young Bucks and FTR. There was a video package. Nothing too offensive except the fact that Excalibur talked about how much the wrestling journalists thought that the Young Bucks were the tag team of the millennium or the tag team of the decade or some shit until FTR dethroned them. And I kept thinking to myself, like, man, wrestling journalists made that choice. Like, that doesn't, like, are you really the top tag team if you're wrestling basically in the first match of every fucking show that you, like, we're talking, look, WWE don't give a fuck about tag teams, not at all, but the New Day, the Usos, I mean, those guys predate FTR. It just doesn't make any sense for us to just, like, I get that, the independents, they elevate everything to such a degree, but it's like you were in the main event of shows in broom closets. high school gyms and shit. Like who really gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? And then, when you were on any big show, you were in the first fucking match. You were you were in 6-man tags or some shit for Wrestle Kingdom. You weren't in the main event. You didn't do anything major. They didn't spend a lot of time on you. Like maybe Ring of Honor spent a lot of time putting over the Young Bucks, but that's not. I'm going too far. I'm going too far. But I just think that it's kind of corny that you would use wrestling journalists. Just say fucking Dave Meltzer and everybody and all his sycophants. Just say them. Just say their name. Say their name. Okay, whatever. So Taz does a promo. Taz talks about and then this started the whole weird thing about TK. No, I think Kenny Omega mentioned TK as well. TK, that's what we call him Tony Khan now. His name is TK. Anyway, Taz talking about he sat outside of TK's office for 3 hours. I'm like, oh, I ain't waiting on nobody for 3 hours unless they got a paycheck or a child or something I'm supposed to be trying to get. There's no way I'm waiting for anybody for 3 hours. You got to be out your fucking mind. But he was talking about he waited outside of TK's office for 3 hours to talk to him about Brian Cage. And then he gets told by some production guy, Taz, a supposed legend in the business, get told to scram by some production underling. Like, beat it, Taz. We got more important things to do. And guess what? Taz, Brooklyn Badass, actually left. Taz, Brooklyn Boot, Kata Hajime, Suplex, and Bam Bam Bigelow gets told to fuck off by some production guy. And he actually does it. They didn't try to choke the guy out or anything. Like, I know you get a bad neck, but he's a production guy. This is what's been like where Taz, or he sends Brian Cage into the office where Brian Cage kicks the doors in like, we need to talk to you. But no, just some nerd from production with a headset on. So I'm like, oh, Taz, TK is really busy right now. Could you guys please fuck off? And Taz was like, oh yeah, you just gonna tell us to fuck off? Okay, so we just gonna go talk to you on your TV then. It's like, okay, well, you're late. So apparently Taz has a problem with Brian Cage being number one in the rankings and not getting a title match. Ricky Starks wins a lot, not ranked at all. That's a problem. They seem to be going after Cody, and they said basically they kind of setting their sights on the TNT Championship. I'm cool with that. And then he says that why don't we have a match at Full Gear? And I said because nobody cares about Brian Cage. Nobody cares. After Brian Cage lost to Moxley, what did he do? He didn't do anything. Nobody cares. It's been like 2 months. Nobody cares about Brian Cage, man. I don't even think Brian Cage cares about Brian Cage at this point. So I don't even understand how he's still ranked number one. But in any event, Taz claimed that there would be an FTW presence at Full Gear, which means they'll probably be working a buy-in match where Brian Cage gets to beat up like Griff Grifferson or some shit and beat him in 30 seconds and then be like, we should be on the show. We should be on the show. Whatever. Fuck off. Okay, so the Private Party and the Young Bucks, they have their match. They just basically have the match that they always have. It's everybody does all the flips. And of course the Young Bucks win because why would you beat the number one contenders 3 days before the match? So what happens is FTR attacks the Young Bucks after the match, and they're going to destroy, I think it's Matt Buck. They're going to destroy his leg. And, they're going to do the whole jump off the second rope with the chair on it. They sit there and they held it for a while because it took Adam Page forever to get out there. Hangman Page runs to the ring. He's got a drink because he has to be drinking every time you see him. But he's got a drink in one hand and a chair in another. He chases off FTR. And then Kenny Omega comes out there to help the Young Bucks. And the Elites are in the ring together. And FTR is on the outside. And then I said to myself, why do I give a shit about this? Why do I give a shit about this? For starters, the Young Bucks kicked Adam Page out of the Elite. Okay? They told him to fuck off. And then they all separated. Nobody has been trying to help him with his drinking problem. Nothing like that. There's been no real conversation or interaction between the two, especially since the tag team broke up. There has been no interaction between the Young Bucks and Adam Page. Why is he coming out there to help them? And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Because he was manipulated by FTR at one time. Remember? When FTR tricked him into thinking that they were his friends. And, he ended up screwing the Young Bucks out of that one match that they lost. Which led, of course, to them kicking him out of the Elite eventually. I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the reason. And that's not strong enough, if we're being honest. That's not a strong enough reason to come out there and save them. Why risk injury for guys who are not your friends? And it doesn't matter. Then Kenny Omega comes out there. Kenny Omega, who's supposed to be a heel now, he's running to the ring to help baby faces, who I'm guessing are baby faces, even though they've been acting like heels. And then Adam Page is still out there with his drink in his chair. And him and Kenny Omega have this confrontation where they're kind of looking at each other and they're talking a lot. And I just kept thinking to myself, I don't care about this. Like, I don't care about they acting like an old married couple. I don't like it. I don't like that they're acting like an old married couple. So then we get to the main event, not the main event of the show, because that was Cody talking. The main event of the show, the meat of this show, was Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. They put a no contact rule on this thing, which makes sense. And then we got some really good promo stuff from both of these guys. It was intense. It was fiery. It had content. They were trying to pack a lot of story into one segment. This was one of the things they did 2 or 3 times throughout the night. Is because they had a half-baked story. So what they did is they decided to go in and add as much more meat to it as they could. So we get into this story, and Eddie Kingston cuts this fantastic, absolute fire promo that he's going to take that World Heavyweight Championship and then take it to his mother and say, the reason you don't have a grandchild is because of this. The reason why you don't have a daughter-in-law is because of this. I spent my whole life chasing this. And I was like, fuck you. He needs to win. Fuck you. Eddie Kingston needs to win. He needs to win. I'm rooting for Eddie Kingston now. He's saying that the title is more important than having a family. And this is a guy with gray in his beard. Like, he's a grizzled vet. This is a guy who would put in 20 years already. This is meaty, good stuff. And then he's talking about, he goes into the whole, I had to betray you. I had to do this, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares about that part. Moxley comes in and says, he never would have thought that Eddie Kingston would be the guy that would sell him out. And then he kind of alludes to Eddie Kingston's mother a little bit, that they used to sit down together and have dinners or whatever. And Eddie Kingston's getting really, really upset. Like, he's getting frantic. He's pissed off. He's turning his back to him. He don't want to hear it, because if he listens to him, he's going to want to hit him. Because there's no contact rule. And then he says that, that Eddie Kingston made a promise to his mother that he could never live up to. That, you can't keep that promise. You promised your mama that you're going to be the world heavyweight champion. You can't keep that promise. Then he says the loudest ones in the locker room are the weakest. Then he says, after 18 years, maybe you're just not good enough. And it was crazy. It was really good. And then Eddie Kingston just like, you gotta be ready to kill me. You're going to have to kill me. I'm not saying I quit. You're going to have to kill me. And I was like, I love this. I loved every bit of this. Love it to death. Amazing shit. Now, the only problem I got is they dumped all of this shit on us about, the mom and the family and all this type of stuff. All of this could have been, and Kingston has been the crazy, angry, envious friend. I like that. I love that role for him. And, Moxley is trying to be emotional. He's kind of, but we haven't seen any relationship between the two of them. So it's kind of hard to take a lot of the emotional stuff about them being, sitting around the table together and all that type of stuff. Like, we haven't seen them be friends. It's not like they're tag team partners that are breaking up. Like, if you were tag team partners breaking up, and then we've seen all of this stuff, like, it was the best friends breaking up, and we see Chuck Taylor and Trent in the car with Trent's mom or whatever, then we can just go back to that. But we have no frame of reference for that when it comes to Moxley and Kingston. We just kind of have to imagine it. And it all feels contrived, like they just made it up on the spot. But it was still good shit because it was delivered well. It was delivered with conviction. It was emotional. And, I'm still not sure if it's a $50 show, but this match is going to be worth the price of admission because I already know that Eddie Kingston is going to basically murder himself in this match because this is his one and only shot. I still don't believe he has any chance of winning, but this is going to be a good match. It better be. Then we get the Pac video. Pac is going to break his silence, and we find out that Pac is basically going stir crazy. He's been isolated for 7 months, but in those 7 months, he's gotten stronger, faster, better, all that type of stuff. That's fine. He cuts this Raven-like promo where he's a victim of circumstance, and everybody's always abandoning him and losing him. It was okay. It was good. I liked the way it was shot. It had 100 Pacs in one room. Different versions of himself. They've been doing that a lot lately in wrestling because Eric Young does it too. Like in Impact, there's all those videos leading up to Bound for Glory. There was all of those videos of Eric Young talking to himself and stuff like that. There's been a lot of stuff like that going on. So, they basically just took that and did it with Pac and had more people in the room, more Pacs in the room laughing and staring at the wall, and some of them wearing his gear and stuff like that. So it was okay. We get a Natural Nightmares thing, which, really, who cares? They're going to be fighting the Butcher and the Blade. Who gives a shit? And Bunny took all of QT Marshall's money. And I was just kind of like, did this guy pimp his wife out? I mean, his wife left him and then came back. I'm not going to get that far into it because I don't give a fuck about QT Marshall anyway. Fuck QT Marshall. Okay? I hate that Dustin is tied to this guy. I hate that. Please get Dustin a real partner. I invoked my Nyla Rose rule on this next match. I don't watch Nyla Rose matches. Skipped it until I saw Vicky Guerrero with the microphone. And then when I saw Vicky Guerrero with the microphone, I'm like, okay, I'll listen. So then I didn't notice it until she said it. But they've tied Red Velvet to Brandy. And I was just like, fuck. Brandy has to be involved with something all the fucking time. Now, I'm one of those people that Red Velvet has been around for a long time. She should get some spotlight, but she's just gonna be standing behind Brandy, man. It's just not gonna do. In any event, what did Vicky say? She said that Brandy is the chief bullshit officer, and then she claims that Tony Khan was listening and made Sheeta give Nyla Rose a title match, and Nyla Rose didn't want to give a title match. I was like, whatever. They started fighting. She said some really bad Japanese stuff, and then they started fighting. Okay, so then they showed the package for Paige and Omega, and they started playing this song, "You Don't Know What You Got Until It's Gone." Look, if you don't understand that they're doing something gay between these two guys, if you don't understand that by now, you're probably never going to get it. And I can say it's half hour into the video. They're doing some real low-key, latently homosexual stuff with these two guys. That's just kind of how it is. And if that's your bag, man, that's your bag. But I'm not feeling it. I just don't feel like that's a big match. These guys were they barely seemed like friends. Like so it didn't mean to me like this was a relationship. This is too much. They need to stop doing this. So they did the Darby Allen thing. Okay, so it was Darby Allen. Matter of fact, let's skip that. We're going to talk about the Darby Allen video and the Cody promo at the same time. So the main event was Cody and the Gun Club, Austin and Billy, versus the Dark Order. Why on earth are any of these people other than Cody in the main event of the show? Why on earth are any of those people in the main event of the show? The Gun Club joined the Nightmare family. This was announced on Twitter. I don't know what the fuck the Nightmare family is. It's just Cody's entourage. Just more bodies to stand behind Cody and rock his stupid ass t-shirts. And then you have these guys. The first time he announced them to be in the Nightmare family, they get a main event spot on the show. Surprise, surprise how that works. you become best buds with Cody, you get a main event shot on the show. I wonder how that works. In any event, this match was stupid because the Dark Order got way too much offense. They're jobbers. The Dark Order are jobbers. Why do they get so much offense in? Just go in there and beat them. What is the Nightmare Family, by the way? Outside of Cody's entourage, and then how do you get in it? Like, what did they do to get in it? Like, Cody just announced them on Twitter, like, oh yeah, they're going to be in the Nightmare Family along with Lee Johnson. And I was just kind of like, okay, does this mean something? Like, what does this mean? Like, what's the requirements to be in the Nightmare Family? You know, why is Cody, like, why is Jericho making MJF, who was like a top contender for the title, fight and scratch and claw and basically beg to be a part of the Inner Circle, while Cody is just picking up litter like QT Marshall and fucking Austin Gunn? You know, he's just picking up these guys like, these guys are mine. Like, get the fuck out of here with these people. Nobody cares about these guys. This is stupid. But after the match, the Dark Order got beat up by Orange Cassidy, because of course they did. Billy looks like a fucking giant in there. He looks like he looked like a full grown man in there wrestling midgets, and that's kind of what it was. So then after the match, Cody cuts his promo. So now we gotta back up a little bit. So earlier in the night, Darby Allen has a video where he smashed a car window with his skateboard, because he's a skateboarder. And he runs over a guy in a Cody mask with his car. He drives, and hits the guy with the car. The guy's wearing a Cody mask. And you know what? This was actually probably one of the best things he's ever done. You know, it was pretty visceral. It's pretty, it was straight to the point that you're going to hit him like a car, run him over, get him out of the way, win that title. I get that. But then this Cody promo comes up. And Cody goes into this spiel about that Darby is telling people that TNT doesn't want him as the champion. That TNT does not want Darby as the champion. That he's too reckless. And I said, when the fuck did Darby say that? Darby doesn't say anything. He never says anything. And then when he does talk, it's always, I'm Darby Allen, and I'm going to staple my shoulder blades to my nuts. It's stupid. Like, where did that come from? That, TNT doesn't want him as the champion. Should he have said that? Wasn't that something he maybe should have said earlier in the night? Like, I know TNT doesn't want me as the champion because I'm not big enough, I'm not marketable or whatever. Just made up some shit. And then Cody could have corrected him. But now it seems like Cody is talking about something nobody heard. Like, it's just whispers in the office or something like that. And I'm like, that doesn't connect with me. That doesn't resonate. And then he connects and he says, he goes on. He says that he recruited Darby personally. He wanted to wrestle him. He wrestled him to see if he was any good. And then he says something about that Cody is the guy who left the Empire, went to war and won, and this makes people mad because he speaks a truth that contradicts how people live. And I just said to myself, what does any of that mean? You left WWE. Okay, you did that. Then you went to war. When was the war? Is it the Wednesday night war? Because NXT is developmental. And then he says, and won. Like, you literally lost last week. I mean, I'm sure, out of the stretch, you won more. Like, I think NXT probably won 5 times out of the whole year. It isn't much of a victory, if you're being honest. Again, it's developmental. But I don't know what's up with Cody and this whole WWE thing where he just kind of has to keep talking about it. And I'm very glad that WWE is finally going to give him his name. They pretty much stopped caring about Cody Rhodes, and they're going to let him beat Cody Rhodes. And even though he said it last year, he could beat Cody Rhodes if he wanted to, but now WWE has dropped the trademark completely, and he said he could beat Cody Rhodes if he wanted to, but he didn't want to, but now I think he does want to beat Cody Rhodes. However, who cares? Maybe they're just, and maybe that's what he's talking about as far as winning, because it sounded like WWE just canceled the trademark and it's just kind of like, whatever. We can't monetize it, so it doesn't matter. And so That was weird. That was a weird, very, very weird promo. And it seems like there was no heat between Darby and Cody, so they tried to microwave some, and it failed completely. Cody can talk his ass off, man, but there was no heat between these two. There's no reason for them to fight other than the title. So they just keep it about the title instead of trying to make it personal. That falls flat when Darby doesn't fucking talk. Okay, and he doesn't fucking wrestle on TV. So if you would have showed us maybe that there were people saying that, yeah, we don't really want Darby Allen as the champion, the TNT champion or whatever, then maybe it would have made a little bit more sense. You know, if we just saw Cody recruiting Darby or heard stories about it prior to this, maybe it would have made sense. But you just dumping all this shit on our lap at one time is just like with Moxley and Kingston, where you're basically just bringing out all this shit because you got a pay-per-view to sell. So it seems like we're just going to make up some shit on the fly because we're trying to make it as personal as it can because personal feuds draw. That's fine. But it fell flat with me because I was like, I never heard any of this shit before. And I watched every episode of AEW Dynamite. Now, honestly, not saying I remember every nook and cranny of every episode, but I would have remembered if Darby was, not the favorite of TNT. I would have remembered that. I would have probably remembered if there was any type of connection between Darby and Cody, other than the fact that they wrestled a couple of times and, had some pretty close matches. Why not build off that? That could have been your base. You could have said, look, we faced each other a lot. You've gotten really, really close to beating me. You're really good. You're just not good enough. You're not the ace. I'm the ace. Yeah, that would have been fine. But, and I also think that Kingston and Moxley should have closed the show. If you're going to close the show with a promo, that should have been the promo to close the show with. Closing the show with Darby staring at Cody and then fucking Dark Order is floating around, that's not a way to close your show. Fuck the Dark Order. Okay? This is got to be about month 10 of Fuck the Dark Order. Fuck them. Any ass, no loop. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Did you think of the show? We're going to do predictions separate because this is long enough. But thank you guys for listening. Like this video if you please. Please donate to the channel. That would really, really help me out. And thank you guys for listening one more time. And I'll talk to you guys later.